All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the RoboTaxi Reports, where we can examine the information I collect as I continually test Tesla's FSD system. I'm taking feedback and experimenting with ways to make this more engaging and simple to follow, so you'll get all of this in an easily understandable but quick video. As you can see, I am trying out my new webcam, and I've got some basic notes, so if it looks like I'm reading, yeah, I am. That way I can avoid just going off on a tangent and losing track of things. Please let me know if you have any ideas of ways to make this better. This is the camera that I use to stream in my very limited gaming that I do these days, but hopefully it adds to the experience. What you're seeing now on the screen, like last time, is the FSD Beta Community Tracker. I like to start my reports by looking at this so you can see a more crowdsourced approach. I'm not responsible for making this or maintaining this tracker. All of that credit goes to my buddy Elias. His Twitter handle and a link to this tracker will all be in the description down below. We've seen several people join since I last showed the tracker on the previous RoboTaxi report, and it's a great way to crowdsource this information. The rest of this video, the rest of my RoboTaxi report, is not related to this tracker. I think that might have been a little confusion last time. The community tracker and my reports are completely separate. But I include this in the start of my videos to try to get more beta testers involved so we can continue to track real information in a peer-reviewed way with the same transparency that Elias and I have approached this with from the very beginning. If you have FSD Beta and want to get involved, please check out the site and hit up Elias on Twitter. Again, his info will be in the description below. Alright, we'll take a quick look at the information from the last report before adding in the last 2 weeks of information as a recap. Over 12 trips down there on 10.69.2.3, you'll see that there was a measured 42% success rate as compared to some not so good results from .2.2 and 6.9.2. And of course, we're still looking for the long-awaited return to that 60+% reliability at the top there. Now, after adding in the new information, that 42% success rates dropped rather significantly to 30% with a total of 27 trips and only 8 successes. 10.69 is definitely struggling in the transportation as a service category, no doubt, but it could have been an excessively difficult set of drives too. Given my schedule, I'm doing a lot of airport and downtown stuff, and those are just harder. They're a lot harder than your standard day-to-day trips around Southern California. That's why it's good to get as much trip data as I can over time to have a more robust and representative sample size. You all likely saw how rough the last downtown shuffle was, and this is even more strict. This is a very tough metric, not to be taken as a direct representation of current performance. Judging the system like this is to expect it to perform as well as me right now with actual paying customers. This means there's even less room for error than there would be in a typical day-to-day beta drive that most testers encounter. I can't afford to let the system miss turns or try to reroute or drive too uncomfortably, so though the reliability may not appear all that great, this is showing that the system can and does actually get the job done. If anything, this is a great proof of concept that robotaxis are not only possible, but absolutely will be solved in time. I'm starting to see more and more comments and reactions from the Tesla Q-style crowd fighting even harder to say that this will be impossible. The information says otherwise, so suck it up. It's really the best thing I can tell you. Even better, keep coming back and watching reports like this and looking at the actual information, and maybe, just maybe, some actual data and real tangible numbers will help sway that narrative a little bit. Looking at the city versus highway disengagements, you'll notice in correlation with the robotaxi struggles, we've got a sizable increase in disengagements too. An important note here is how frequently I put the system through stressful testing. This is important, so I'm going to labor the point. I don't do simple stuff to praise the system. I beat FSD Beta up as much as I can. Friar's Challenge, Friar's Gauntlet, Downtown Shuffle, La Jolla Scramble, RoboTaxi trips. I'm treating this thing like I'm its personal trainer, and we're constantly in the gym trying to improve. It's a cheesy analogy, but it's important to realize that I could not care less for a simple, yay, no disengagements type approach. So when you guys start to see me actually lose my mind about how well the system is doing, you'll know that there's a lot more meaning behind that, given how critical and hard I am on the system. All of that's to say that when you see a sharp increase like this coming from me, though I cover approximately 90% more distance than the average tester, I'm one guy. My info shouldn't be taken to speak for the testing at scale. That's important and why I always mention the community tracker in the beginning of the video. Generally in science, peer review and cross-examination is key. So again, I'm one guy, I'm not representative of the system as a whole, and I really put the system through hell on a day-to-day basis. So keep that in mind and try not to get too discouraged with results and bogged down by the here and now. Failure and struggle is how you iterate and improve. So we'll see where this goes in the future. Hopefully to no one's surprise, highway continues to move along rather consistently compared to city streets, and I don't expect that to change until we see a major change in the software itself. On this next chart here, there's not as much to say because it's the same information you just saw, but with an inverse approach. So more is better. And on here, blue is city streets, whereas orange is highway. So this is kind of a how far does it get before a disengagement occurs, rather than how many disengagements occur every kilometer driven. Moving along with no surprise, you can see here that the amount of disengagements and interventions on the most current measurement of the system reflect the same sizable jump in disengagements and such as the last chart. Proportionally, however, there are less interventions compared to the information from October 17th, the last RoboTaxi report, to now. You can see it. It's small, but it's there. Now, feel free to pause and go back and forth between these charts to really look at what's going on and what's being represented, and feel free to ask all the questions in the comment section. I'm moving through this rather quickly for time's sake, so I can make sure I have this out on Monday every 2 weeks, given my tighter schedule nowadays, and also so it doesn't kill everyone's attention span. Now, saving the fan favorite for last, we're going to take a look at the Causation donut. And this time, just looking at 10.69.2.3, staying current. If you want to see previous version donuts, check out the last RoboTaxi report from 2 Mondays ago, and you'll see kind of a comprehensive breakdown from 10.8 all the way to now. Now, here we are looking at the donut from the last report from 10/17/2022, as you can see on the screen. At the time, we had 18 total disengagements and really only 4 categories of the 9 typical that you'll see. Here we had issues with decision-making, system limitations, safety, and human. And on the human note, real quick, so lately, I mean, a lot of you have probably seen the human error counter thing, especially with the last Downtown Shuffle video, which was hilarious. Now, that is separate from what you're seeing here. The human error counter thing is more for fun, to show how bad people can be and to level out the perspective of what FSD is really trying to outperform or replace in the future. This, however, human causes for disengagement is just that. These interactions, whether it was with another driver, pedestrian, cyclist, whatever, actually caused me to disengage the vehicle rather than just pointing out the issues that the errors rather, that other people make while they're driving. Now, looking at our most current donut, you can see quite a bit more information. Here, I've even included categories that don't have any disengagements yet to show all 9 and how they measure with one another. I also want to keep them in this order so when we compare future donuts, there's no confusion or issue correlating one donut to another by color or where each thing is sitting on the graph. And to no surprise, disengagements continue to be the biggest cause for failure and the leading cause for RoboTaxi reliability issues right now. I haven't had much issue with maps yet where the system's navigation and the location on the map don't correlate properly. Fortunately, that's been rare. The human factor, as expected, is a sizable chunk of the disengagements, especially being in a busy, urban, and traffic-heavy area, especially given the times that I'm driving, with a lot of people trying to go to the airport and just that early morning rush in general, and often the evening rush, given the amount of time that I have in the day to dedicate to this. This time around, system limitations have been quite a bit higher, and to expand a bit further on this, it includes things the system's not really capable of doing right now, which, you know, as we already know, U-turns, except for the one little fun fluke I had, still trying to repeat that. But also poor weather conditions, dips in the road, like the kind of dips that make you think you're going to lose your front end if you hit them at normal speeds. System is not really good at slowing down for those yet. Sometimes it seems to, sometimes it doesn't. I guess we could also add speed bumps in this category too. But closed roads as well, especially downtown or areas where they close off certain streets for pedestrians at certain times of the day, like 4th, 5th, and 6th Avenue in downtown San Diego, are often closed off so that pedestrians can enjoy those entire streets. And it's a system limitation in the sense that, like no turn on reds as well, the car can't, or the system rather, can't read and interact properly, or react properly, I should say, and make the right move. I don't hold that against the system because, as I've used in an analogy in the comments section, it's like expecting a person to know how to properly do a surgery that's had no medical training. We wouldn't just expect your average Joe Schmo off the street to be able to perform a biopsy on someone's heart. Like, no, that's not how that works. Once the system has the capability and is expected to react properly, that's when we can actually critique it and start counting it against it. as an actual issue with it not being able to do the job that it's supposed to do. I really hope that makes sense with everybody. I saw a lot of feedback like that in one of my downtown videos where I was audibly saying I don't really count this against the system, and people thought that that was wrong, that I should say it was the beta's fault. That doesn't really make any sense if you follow that logical approach. So think about that. Hopefully that resonates well. If that was confusing or didn't make much sense, let me know in the comments and I'll try to explain further. But to return and avoid going on any more of a tangent, the last thing I would also consider in the systems limitations category would be really, really bad road or lane designs. Things that you just wouldn't expect the system or even a person to logically follow. And an example of that is the Imperial Avenue exit in one of my recent videos. I didn't really get to do much testing on it because of the broken down Land Rover in that instance, but it's a good example of getting off the highway and trying to jump 3 lanes over to take an immediate right. It really makes you wonder what people were thinking when they designed that intersection in the first place. I'd imagine the increased amount of time that I'm spending downtown has contributed a lot to the system the system limitation portion of the donut being rather higher than normal. And speaking of system errors, on 6.9.2.3, I haven't gotten any red wheel or massive system errors, so that's a major win over 1,300 kilometers of driving on .2.3. Now, critical disengagements, which would be both safety and legal, I separate those because sometimes it might make an illegal move that isn't necessarily a safety concern in that instance, but it's still breaking the law, critical disengagement. So hopefully it makes sense why I would separate those categories to make it more clear of what's happening. But combined, it's about 10% of the overall disengagements. That's a bit higher than I'd like to see, but it is proportionately a very small portion of the overall issue. I would definitely like to see that start to trend back downward over time, but we'll see. More information will be the best way to parse that out. LV or large vehicles like buses and semi-trucks, they haven't been as much of a concern, but I'm pretty sure anytime I get near one, things will get a bit funky. And hopefully in the future, the system does a better job of just kind of smoothly navigating around them. Can understand why it'd be difficult. I mean, even humans get nervous or mess up around large vehicles. And so far, no issues with any construction. That's mostly due to the consistency of my routes. I haven't really had any construction to encounter. So that's more to do with where I'm driving than actually successfully going through construction sites, to be clear. Given I have far less time to put into my daily testing, there's more regularity than I'd like in my routes. Meaning early mornings and such pretty much keep me in the downtown San Diego, Point Loma airport area. Once things with my job balance out, I'm hoping to get a lot more diversity back in my testing. But for now, the system's going to get a lot of information out of some pretty stressful areas. And that pretty much wraps up this RoboTaxi report. I really hope you guys are enjoying the return of these information-heavy videos. I'm going to continue to do this in a bi-weekly format. That way, in between, I can put out as much fun content as I can, because I know that this type of content has a much more niche audience, the data and science geeks like myself. But even so, in my own humble opinion, this is the most important thing that I could be doing on the channel, is showing you the actual information behind the system and what it's doing. Thanks again for your time and the view and all the continued feedback that I've gotten from everyone as the channel grows. And I will catch you guys in the next video. Take care.